Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about reception lighting and the ways to do it, and the right ways to do it, and the wrong ways to do it. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So reception lighting. Reception lighting is a very, sometimes can be tricky way to do it. There's a basic way to do it with just a flash on your camera bouncing it off of the wall. But what if you have 15-foot walls, and what if they're black, and what if there's no place to bounce? What if you're in the middle of the room and there's no place to bounce around you? So that's all stuff that needs to be considered, especially when it comes to a wedding. Reception lighting it can make and break a picture. It can make and break a mood. It can make and break a brand when it comes to that. So Elmer from T&K Photo did a video about reception lighting, and I'll put his link in down below to follow his channel. But it's really is, you want to keep it simple. You just want for me, it's cross lighting. So I have Godox AD200s that I bring for reception lighting. They're more powerful. They're better than having off-camera, regular flashes kind of thing like that, that you use on top of your camera. They are triggered by receivers. So I have the V1 for Sony on the top of my camera. I can trigger that as a master, and I can trigger that as to trigger my reception lighting on the sides. So I always use two. I'm always on group 2, and my second shooter's on a different channel, different groups, so we don't have our lights crossing or anything like that. And I've got 13-foot stands. The stands are always the trickiest part about that. So let's go back for just a second to talk about the lights and stuff and the placement of the lights. So I use the Godox AD200s. They're on stands. 13-foot stands. I'll put the links down below for the AD200s and for the stands. I got them at Autorama. And I put them, depending on where you are, every venue is different. So for me, I go to a lot of venues that are the same a lot of times, so I have a place that I have to put them. If you're inside of one of the places, it's a barn for me. So I have to bring like a bungee cord to keep the pole not extend and open up the legs, because there's 4 poles, 4 columns, and the dance floor is maybe 10 by 12 by 12, so it's not big. But it's smaller, and you can dance on the outsides of that too, but those poles are there. So I have my lights wrapped around that pole with it pointing downwards into the middle and downwards into the middle. So for me, I always try and shoot so that I'm right in the middle of it. So I'll have one on this side, one on this side, and I'll put the bride and groom in the middle, so that I've got lights coming from the sides this way here. That's usually 90% of the way that I run my lighting. At the same time, if it's a father-daughter, mother-son, and or a first dance, what I like to do is I like to walk to the side. So if I've got one here and got one here, I like to walk around from the middle. I like to go over to this side. So now I'm standing with the light right behind me, and I duck down. So that means opposite side is going to be where this other light is going to be. So I duck down low, and I use it as a rim light. So they're still going to be lit from the front on this side. They're still going to be lit from the rim, the back, on that side, and then I light them up from that exposure that way there, and it comes out really good. Highlights in the background, it turns out to be a really good shot. So by not moving my lights, I can get 2 different angles that I want to get. So you don't want to overuse the effect of the lights being in your shot. It's cool for 1 or 2 shots to get the lights going off, standing up in the corner, focusing on the bride and groom in the middle. It's okay for 1 or 2 shots, but not every shot needs to be like that. So I'll crop in so that they're, or I'll move in or zoom in so that they're not in my shot, but I still get the effect of what I wanted to get the effect of when it comes to that. So the only problem that comes into that situation is when the bride and groom are doing a skit or a dance. So if they're actively moving all the way around and they're spinning and spinning, doing all this stuff like that, sometimes the cross lighting becomes a little bit more, it's going to be in your shot, or it could be in the way, or they're too far from one. So if this is B and B, if they're too far, if they start moving to this side over here and doing something, this light doesn't reach them, this light's too hot. So I always keep them on the same channel because it's too cumbersome. It's too hard to go A and B and then bringing one up, because then you want to keep them equal. So you always want to bring them to be the same. So if you keep them on the same channel, you're better off that way there. So the lights that I use, I go about a foot higher than where the bride and groom's height is. I have a sphere on and a mag grid. So mag grid, mag sphere is usually 90% of my combinations. Every once in a while, if I'm doing just a father, daughter, mother, son, I'll take the sphere off and be a little bit more dramatic with the lighting, with the grids just hitting the bride and groom and not sphere hitting it wider than that. So that's always very important, is to try and figure out. It's an easy thing to do. Walk over, pop it off, put it on top, pop it off, put it on top, and then, or tell my assistant to go put it back on, take it back off. So there's ways to get around it when it comes to that. So every venue is different. So you have to be very careful about where the placement, not only of the lights are, but where the placement of the legs are. You know those tripod things, they stick out kind of far. You don't want somebody to trip over them. So you want to make sure they're back up against the wall if possible. When there's someplace around there, I will actually even put an extra chair in front of them so the legs are concealed and blocked by the chair. Somebody was going to bump the chair sooner than they hit your legs. Nothing needs to fall over or anything like that. So be aware of the leg placement, not only the light placement, but the leg placement. So angles. Angles are very important when it comes to cross lighting. You can be pretty creative as far as Elmer talked about it from T&K Photo. He talked about not shooting in the direction of the DJ. And he's absolutely right. Sometimes all the time, you always want to shoot opposite. So I like to have the bride and groom in the middle, and then behind them is all of their guests. And here comes the train. So you always want to have that behind them, their guests behind them, anything with lit walls or anything like that, anything aesthetically pleasing behind them is always what you want to do. But sometimes you're faced with the direction of having to shoot in a way that you don't want to. So that's when I try and be a little bit more creative with my lighting. So if I have to face the DJ, I'll ask the DJ to shut the lights off in the background if I feel they're going to be distracting. And sometimes I'll put them, this is what I do. I always make sure that I put a business card in the middle of the floor before the bride and groom come walking in. I tell the bride and groom, hey, symmetrically inside of the room, chandelier, everything else like that. When they come walking in, they're ready to start dancing the second they walk in the door. You want them to come further into the room, to be in the middle of the room, because my lights are placed right here. If they're too far back, it's not lighting them the right way. If they're too far forward, it's not right. They're free to move around after that. But start in the middle and I put my business card down. And for some reason, everybody's always walking by and picking up the business card. They forget, they think I just dropped it out of my pocket. It's there to let the bride and groom know that's where they're going to stand. So if you work with me, you'll know what I'm talking about. So get your lighting setting with your second shooter. So his lights are the same, balance is the same, get everything ready. They come walking in, wedding party comes walking in. How are they walking in? I will usually put, if they're out of position, I will usually use my flash with my sphere on my camera as a fill. So I like the way that this comes in at, I try and stay around 1/8, about nothing more than 1/8 power because they're a good 10, 12 feet back, so I need to reach them. That's the only reason why the power is a little bit higher than usual, because I like to shoot wide and then my second shooter shoots tight. And then I'll put my flash on my camera to be able to put a little bit of light on them in the front. So sometimes if you're forced to face a wall in a direction you don't want to, make the atmosphere or the wall behind them a little bit darker and be a little bit more dramatic or a little bit more edgy with your lighting, so it blocks any of the things that are, hanging around in the background. If people are still at the bar, which they shouldn't be, you want to block things like that. So be aware of your surroundings when it comes to. So every once in a while, like I said, you want to make sure that you incorporate the lights into the shot and then go in so that the lights are not inside of there. Know your angles so that you can come around and use one as a rim light and then go back on the other side and shoot in front of them this way here. If it's a bride and groom and they're in the middle and they just got their foreheads together, what I like to do is get that light to come in through them from behind and then light them from the front. So a little bit more of lighting like that. So reception lighting is tricky. So as you're looking through all of this, you'll see a few samples of what I've done for either a last dance and or a first dance, father, daughter, mother, son, anything like that. Cross lighting is the best way because you're okay with any direction that they go in. If you are just blasting one big powerful blast to the ceiling and hopefully lighting everything up in the room, a lot of people in the room are going to notice that, and they're going to be like a little bit like looking off to the side, like where, that's very powerful. So by keeping your lights lower power and a little bit more pointed directly at them, it's a lot more controlled in that way there. So it ends up being better. So reception lighting can be fun. It can be edgy. You can be really, really creative with it. Keep it simple. Just keep it as simple as possible when it comes to that. It's very important because you're not, how many times do people like, oh my God, I hired you for your reception lighting? No, they're not going to do that. More than likely, they're going to hire you because of what you do with the bride and groom, whether it's their first dance or the ceremony or something like that. So just keep that in mind and pay attention to that when it comes to that. So hopefully this video was good for you. I do have a few more podcasts coming up pretty soon, and I'm going to be doing another video coming up soon for conversations with other vendors at the wedding. So that's going to be my next video coming up. So thank you guys for coming back to the channel. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button because it does help me out. And this video, hopefully it did. If you have any questions, if you do something different with your lighting, put your comments down below and I'll reply back to them as soon as I possibly can. So thank you guys for coming back to the channel, and remember to smile more because it sure does hurt less. Peace.